Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi, The Unvarnished Dossier. Birth name, Venkataraman Iyer. Dates, December 30th, 1879, April 14th, 1950. Core philosophy, Advaita Vedanta, non-duality. Ajatavada, theory of non-causality. Primary method, Atmavichara, self-inquiry. Part 1, the brutal truth of biography, chronological timeline. This timeline strips away hagiography to focus on the physical movements, key events, and biological realities of his life. The early years, Tiruchuli and Madurai, 1879, 1896. 1879, December 30th. Born in Tiruchuli, Tamil Nadu. Father, Sundaram Iyer, unlicensed pleader or court agent. Mother, Alagamal. Venkataraman was the second of 4 children. 1891. The family moves to Madurai following the death of his father. Venkataraman attends Scott's Middle School and later the American Mission High School. Personality profile. He was not academically brilliant. He was known for an abnormally deep sleep, friends could physically abuse him while he slept, and he wouldn't wake up, and a robust physique. He had no spiritual inclination or knowledge of Sanskrit philosophy. 1895. Encounter with the word Arunachala. An elderly relative mentions he came from Arunachala, Tiruvannamalai. Venkataraman is shocked to realize this mythical place is a physical location on a map. 1896, July, the awakening. The event, alone in his uncle's house, a sudden, violent fear of death overtakes him. He feels he is about to die. The reaction. Instead of panicking or calling a doctor, he lies down and mimics a corpse. He holds his breath and stiffens his body. The realization. He dramatizes death to see what survives. He realizes the body dies, but the I, the awareness, is untouched. The fear vanishes instantly. This was not a mental conclusion, but a permanent shift in consciousness. The person Venkataraman died. The sage was born. The departure in early austerities, 1896, 1899, 1896, August 29th, leaves home. He writes a note claiming he is leaving in search of his father, referencing God, and that no money should be spent searching for this, referring to his body as an object. 1896, September 1st, arrives at Tiruvannamalai, Arunachala. The act of renunciation, he throws away the remainder of his money, shaves his head mostly, and discards his sacred thread, symbol of Brahmin caste status. He wears only a loincloth. Patala Lingam, the underground vault. He sits in the 1,000-pillared hall of the Arunachalaswara temple. To avoid stone-throwing urchins, he moves into the Patala Lingam, a dark, damp underground vault. Physical reality, insects and vermin feasted on his thighs. He remained motionless, absorbed in samadhi, oblivious to the rotting flesh of his legs. He was forcibly removed by locals who feared he was dead. The caviars, Virupaksha and Skandasramam, 1899, 1922. 1898, moves to Gurumurtham, a shrine on the outskirts. He is physically neglected, hair matted, nails long, barely eating. 1899, 1916, moves up the hill to Virupaksha cave. Silence. For many years he rarely spoke. Communication was through silence or minimal gestures. 1902, Savaprakasam Pillai visits. Ramana writes the answers to his questions in the sand. These become the core text, Nan Yar. Who am I? 1912, second death experience at Tortoise Rock. He feels his heart stop and his body turn blue, cyanosis. He remains fully aware while his body clinically shuts down for minutes, then revives. 1916, his mother, Alagamal, joins him. This is a pivotal shift. The ascetic hermit now has a household in a cave. 1916-1922, moves to Skandasramam cave, slightly higher up. Mother's liberation, May 19, 1922. His mother dies. Ramana sits with her for hours, his hands on her chest and head, guiding her consciousness into the heart, ensuring liberation rather than rebirth. The ashram years, 1922-1950, 1922, descends to the foot of the hill to bury his mother. Sannyasis are buried, not cremated. He establishes a shrine over her grave. He refuses to return to the caves. A hut is built. This becomes Sri Ramanashramam. 1922-1950. He never leaves this location again. 1938. The will controversy. Ramana signs a will, leaving the management of the ashram to his brother and his descendants. This causes significant legal and devotee friction, detailed in negatives. 1940s. Fame explodes. Paul Brunton writes A Search in Secret India, bringing Western attention. Somerset Maugham visits, inspiring The Razor's Edge. The End, The Sarcoma. 1948-1950. 1948. A small nodule appears on his left elbow. It is removed but returns. Diagnosis: fibrosarcoma, a virulent cancer. Treatment: he undergoes 4 operations. The reality: the operations were brutal. He often refused anesthesia. Massive loss of blood. The doctors were traumatized by cutting into him while he watched with detachment. Quote, when devotees wept over his suffering, he said, "Where is the pain? It is in the body. I am not the body." 1950, April 14, 8:47 p.m. Ramana passes away. Phenomenon: at the exact moment of his death, a massive slow-moving meteor was seen trailing across the sky in several parts of India, vanishing behind Arunachala. Part 2. The practical teaching, no fluff. Ramana's teaching is often misunderstood as intellectual introspection. It is not. It is a technique for dissolving the false ego. 1. Self-inquiry, Atma-vichara. This is the primary method. It is not repeating, "Who am I?" like a mantra. The method, step by step. 1. The anchor. The mind consists of thoughts. All thoughts, fear, hunger, memory, arise for an entity called I. Example: I am hungry, I am afraid. 2. The pivot. When a thought arises, do not follow the thought. Instead, ask, to whom does this thought occur? 3. The answer. The answer is naturally to me. 4. The inquiry. Immediately ask, who is this I? From where does this I arise? 5. The holding. Do not answer intellectually. Example: I am the soul. Instead, turn the attention inward to hunt for the source of the I feeling. Look for where the sensation of I emanates from in the body or consciousness. 6. The result. The mind, ego, cannot find its own source. Like a flashlight trying to shine on itself, the I thought dissolves. What remains is a vibrating silence, the heart. 7. Repetition. You must do this every time a thought arises. It is a war of attrition against mental tendencies, vasanas. 2. Surrender, prapati. If you cannot do self-inquiry, because the mind is too weak or agitated, Ramana prescribes surrender. Practical instruction: give the burden to the higher power. The condition: it must be total. You cannot surrender your problems and keep your desires. You must surrender the feeling of being the doer. The metric: if you still worry, you have not surrendered. 3. The heart, hridayam. Ramana spoke of the spiritual heart, not the physical pump. Location: 2 digits to the right of the center of the chest. Significance: this is the seat of the self in the body. During inquiry, one tries to trace the I back to this location. Part 3. The bibliography, comprehensive. Ramana wrote very little. Most books are transcripts of dialogues recorded by devotees. However, the few things he did write are potent. Our writings by Ramana Maharshi, the source texts. These are the only works strictly authored or translated by him. 1. Nanyar. Who am I? Format: Q&A. Origin: written in sand for Sivaprakasan Pillai, 1902. Core content: the definitive manual on self-inquiry. States clearly that the mind is nothing but a bundle of thoughts and the root thought is I too. Upadesa Undiyar, the essence of instruction, or Upadesa Saram. Format: 30 verses. Origin: written to correct a group of ritualistic rishis who believed action, karma, creates liberation. Core content: grades spiritual practices, puja, worship, japa, chanting, dhyana, meditation, atma vichara, inquiry. 3. Uladu Narpadu, 40 verses on reality. Format: 40 verses plus 2 invocatory verses. Core content: dense metaphysical poetry. Discusses the nature of the world, God, and the soul. Refutes the reality of the world apart from the seer. 4. Uladu Narpadu Anubandam, the supplement to the 40 verses. 5. 5 hymns to Arunachala, Aksharamana Malai, marital garland of letters, devotional poetry. Navamana Malai, necklace of 9 gems. Arunachala Padigam, 11 verses. Arunachala Ashtakam, 8 verses. Arunachala Pancharatnam, 5 gems. 6. Ekatma Panchakam, 5 verses, on the oneness of self. B. Transcripts and recordings, the Gospels. These were written by others, but verified by Ramana. 1. Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, recordings by Munagala Venkataramaya. Significance: the Bible of Ramana literature. Covers 1935-1939. Verbatim Q&A. Utility: best for day-to-day practical doubts. 2. Day by Day with Bhagavan, by A. Devaraja Mudaliar. Significance: covers 1945-1947. More conversational, captures the ashram atmosphere and Ramana's humor. 3. Letters from Sri Aramanisramam, by Suri Nagama. Significance: intimate observations of his daily life, interactions with animals, and kitchen work. 4. Guru Vachaka Kovai, the garland of Guru sayings. Significance: written by Muruganar. Considered the most authoritative doctrinal text because Ramana corrected every verse. It is complex and strictly Advaitic. Part 4. The negatives, controversies, and criticisms. To provide a truthful account, we must look at the friction points. Ramana was realized, but the environment around him was human and flawed. 1. The ashram management and nepotism. The conflict: Ramana renounced the world, yet his brother, Niranjanananda Swami Chinnaswamy, took control of the ashram and ran it with an iron fist. The criticism: Chinnaswamy was often viewed as tyrannical, litigious, and aggressive. He sought to secure the financial future of the ashram for his family, Ramana's relatives. Ramana's stance: Ramana refused to interfere. He signed papers when asked, including a controversial will that established a hereditary succession for the ashram management, passed down through his brother's lineage. The fallout: many old devotees, like Annamalai Swami, were banished or treated poorly by the management. Devotees were confused. Why does a renounced sage allow his brother to build a financial empire around him? Ramana's truth: he viewed the ashram actions as their karma. He claimed no ownership, so he wouldn't fight to stop the management. He was a witness. This passive enabling infuriated social reformers. 2. The lack of social activism. Context: Ramana lived during the height of the Indian independence movement and Gandhi's social reforms. The criticism: Gandhian activists visited and criticized him for sitting in a cave while the country burned. They asked him to use his power to help India. Ramana's response: he maintained that self-realization is the greatest help to the world. He said, the power that created the world knows how to take care of it. Perception: to the pragmatic mind, he appeared indifferent to human suffering, famines, wars, riots. He refused to act as a social messiah. 3. The caste question. The issue: for much of the ashram's history, Brahminical orthodoxy was observed in the dining hall. Brahmins and non-Brahmins sat separately. The criticism: how can a sage of oneness allow caste segregation in his presence? Ramana's stance: he personally did not observe caste. He dined with everyone, or with the dogs or beggars. However, he did not force the management to break tradition. aiming to not disturb the peace of the Orthodox visitors. He eventually ensured that he sat in a position where he was visible to both groups, effectively bridging them, but he did not aggressively dismantle the system. 4. The suffering of the body, cancer. The reality: it is uncomfortable for spiritual seekers to accept that a sage died of a rotting, painful cancer. The controversy: some devotees claimed it was due to him taking on the karma of devotees. The medical truth: it was a sarcoma, it smelled bad, it bled. It required painful dressing changes. The lesson: Ramana refused to heal himself. When asked to use powers to cure it, he refused, stating the body must undergo its destiny. This negates the law of attraction-style spirituality that claims spiritual purity equals physical health. 5. Legal battles. The event: in the 1930s, there was a lawsuit regarding the ownership of the ashram, Ramana's role. He was dragged into court. A commission came to the ashram. He had to answer questions about whether he owned the property. The answer: he stated he owned nothing. This complicated things for the management, who wanted legal title. Eventually, the administration secured control, but the spectacle of a sage in a legal deposition was seen by some as a degradation of his status. Part 5. Detailed geography. Places he went. Ramana was arguably the most stationary figure in history. After arriving in Tiruvannamalai in 1896, he never left the municipal limits. 1. Tiruchuli, birthplace. House of birth, now a shrine, Sundara Mandiram. Bhuminatha temple, the local temple he played in as a child. 2. Madurai, schooling. Meenakshi temple, he visited daily after his awakening, weeping in ecstasy before the idols. Number 11. Chakapanakan Street, the house where the death experience occurred. 3. Tiruvannamalai, the destination. Arunachaleswara Temple. Thousand-pillared hall, first site of meditation. Patala Lingam, the underground vault. Gurmurtam, temple on the outskirts. Less crowded. Arunagiri Natar Temple, another brief stay. 4. The hill, Arunachala. Virupaksha Cave, shaped like the symbol Om. He lived here for 17 years. It is hot in summer. Mango Tree Cave, used briefly in summers. Skandasramam, a built-up hermitage with a patio and trees. More comfortable. He lived here with his mother. 5. Sri Ramanashramam, the final abode. The old hall, where he spent almost all his waking hours on a sofa. The dining hall, where he insisted on eating only after everyone else had been served. The Nirvana room, a small room where he spent his final days to escape the crowds during his illness. Part 6. Practical real-world Q&A, condensed. These are syntheses of his answers to common, practical problems, stripped of flowery language. Q. How do I control the wandering mind? Ramana. Do not try to control the mind with the mind. It is like a thief dressing up as a policeman to catch the thief. Instead, investigate the thinker. When the mind wanders, ask who is wandering. The mind will turn back to the self and become quiet. Q. I have a job and family. Can I practice? Ramana. Yes. Renunciation is not discarding clothes or family, it is discarding the ego. You can work. Simply keep a portion of attention on the I while working. Perform action without the sense of I am the actor. Q. Is a guru necessary? Ramana. Yes. But the guru is not the body. The guru is the self within. The external guru pushes you and the internal guru pulls you in. Q. Why is there so much evil or suffering in the world? Ramana, you ask about the world's suffering while ignoring the sufferer. Who is asking the question? Fix the I first. If you wake up from a nightmare, do you ask why the monsters in the dream were evil? No, you realize they were your own creation. Wake up to the self, and the world's suffering is understood differently. Q. How long will it take? Ramana. As long as you believe you are the body. Part 7. Key figures around him, the cast. Understanding Ramana requires understanding the people who filtered his message to the world. 1. Muruganar, the shadow. a poet who recorded the highest teachings. He completely surrendered his ego. 2. Ganapati Muni, a Sanskrit scholar and yogi. He gave Ramana the title Bhagavan and Maharshi. He had occult powers, siddhis, and often urged Ramana to take a more active role in the world, which Ramana declined. 3. Annamalai Swami, the builder. He physically built much of the ashram under Ramana's direct supervision. His memoirs are the most practical boots-on-the-ground accounts of working with a sage. 4. Major Chadwick, a British military officer who ran the ashram like a disciplined camp. He was fiercely loyal and one of the few Westerners to stay permanently. 5. Lakshmi the cow. Not a human, but treated as a devotee. Ramana believed she was a realized soul in animal form. He was present at her death to ensure her liberation. Part 8. The final analysis. Summary of truth. What Ramana Maharshi was: a biological singularity, a man who lost his ego permanently at age 16 and lived 54 years as a functional void. A stoic, he bore physical pain, family drama, and crowding without complaint. A mirror, he reflected the devotee state. To the silence lover, he was silent. To the intellectual, he was a philosopher. What Ramana Maharshi was not: a miracle worker. He disdained displays of power, siddhis. A social reformer, he did not care about politics or societal structure. A cult leader, he sought no followers, money, or institutions. The institution grew around him, often against his passive resistance. The helpful takeaway for you: Ramana's life proves that happiness is not dependent on external circumstances. He was happy in a damp pit with insects biting him, and he was happy while dying of cancer. The practical application is autonomy. You do not need to change the world to be free. You need to find the source of the one who wants to change it. Actionable step: set a timer for 10 minutes. Sit. Do not chant. Do not breathe in a pattern. Wait for a thought. When it comes, cut it with the question: to whom is this thought coming? Trace the feeling of me back to the chest. Do it again. That is the entire path. Here is a continuation of the unfiltered dossier on Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. This section focuses strictly on high-utility practical details, specific techniques, lost historical frictions, and daily applications that were not covered in the first part. This is the advanced user manual and the hidden history combined. Part 9. The mechanics of the current. Aham Svarana. Most summaries of Ramana stop at the intellectual question: who am I? However, Ramana gave specific technical details on what happens physically and energetically when the inquiry begins to work. This is the missing link for many practitioners. 1. The distinctions: ego versus the throb. Ramana distinguished between the I thought, ego, and the I, the current. The ego, ahankara. This is the static, sticky feeling of I am Venkataraman, I am anxious, I am a father. It is attached to the brain and the head. The svishrana, the throb. When the I thought is investigated intensely, it sinks. In its place, a rhythmic throb or pulsation arises. Ramana called this aham svarana. The sensation: it feels like a magnetic pull or a continuous current of awareness that proceeds from the spiritual heart, right side of chest, to the brain, sahasrara. The practical sign: you know you are making progress, not when you have a blank mind, but when you feel this specific vibrating I sensation in the chest. It is not an emotion, it is a frequency. 2. The technique of churning the nadi. Ramana described the Amrita nadi, the channel of immortality. The method: when you ask who am I, you are essentially reversing the flow of energy. Normally, energy flows from the heart, brain, senses world. The reversal, inquiry, forces the energy to withdraw from the senses back to the brain, and from the brain down into the heart. The click: many devotees reported a physical click or snap in the chest when the ego temporarily disconnected. Ramana confirmed this phenomenon as the severance of the granthi, the knot of ignorance. 3. Breath control, pranayama, as the break. Ramana was not a yogi who taught complex breath retention, but he was pragmatic. The rule, the mind and breath are two branches of the same tree. The hack, if your mind is too agitated to inquire, example, during a panic attack or extreme anger, do not try to inquire. It will fail. Instead, practice Kevala Kumbhaka, simple retention. Action, exhale fully. Hold the breath out for as long as comfortable. Inhale. This physically slows the metabolic rate of the brain, forcing the mind to slow down. Once the mind is slow, then apply the inquiry. He viewed pranayama as the brake on the car and inquiry as the steering wheel. Part 10. The Kitchen Yoga, Daily Life Protocols. Ramana spent more time in the kitchen than in the meditation hall. His actions there were not chores. They were a masterclass in mindfulness and karma yoga. This is how he taught practical living. 1. The philosophy of no waste. Ramana was ruthlessly efficient. He considered waste a spiritual violation. The vegetable ends. When cooks threw away the prickly ends of eggplants or the rough skins of ridges gourds, Ramana would retrieve them from the dustbin. He would grind them into chutneys. The lesson, you are throwing away the vegetable goddess. He taught that everything has an essence, Sarah, that can be used. Application, in your life, this translates to resource reverence. Whether it is time, money, or food, treating resources with absolute precision keeps the mind sharp and attentive. A sloppy environment creates a sloppy mind. 2. The equality of the knife. The technique. When cutting vegetables, Ramana insisted that all pieces be uniform in size. The metaphor, if you cut the pieces equally, they cook equally. If you treat people equally, you evolve equally. The meditation, he forbade chatting while working. The focus had to be entirely on the knife and the vegetable. If the mind wandered, the cut would be uneven. He used vegetable cutting as a biofeedback mechanism for mental focus. 3. The rasam recipe, the divine soup. Ramana was a skilled cook. He once invented a specific rasam, soup, to cure the flu-like symptoms of the devotees. The ingredients, pepper, cumin, tamarind, and a specific wild herb he found on the hill. The style, he cooked without tasting. He knew the balance of salt and spice by smell and intuition alone. He taught that the cook's state of mind enters the food. If you cook with anger, the eater ingests that anger. Part 11. The Lost Controversies, the Hidden History. To truly understand the environment, one must look at the specific conflicts that the hagiographies often scrub out. These incidents humanize the ashram and show how Ramana dealt with toxicity. 1. The Paul Brunton expulsion. Paul Brunton is famous for introducing Ramana to the West with a search in secret India. However, their relationship ended poorly. The conflict, Brunton began to view himself as a prophet. He started claiming that Ramana was telepathically dictating messages to him. The notebook, Brunton kept a notebook of these messages, claiming they were prophecies about the coming world war and the future of the ashram. Ramana's reaction. Ramana rarely corrected people, but this was dangerous. He publicly stated, "I have not dictated anything to anyone." The ban? The ashram management, Chinnaswamy, eventually banned Brunton from the premises. Brunton grew bitter and later wrote critiques of the ashram, though he maintained reverence for Ramana himself. The lesson. This highlights the danger of spiritual ego thinking you are the chosen channel of the guru. Ramana shut this down immediately. 2. The murder attempt. The coffee incident. There is a persistent oral tradition and some written hints regarding a poisoning attempt. The incident, early in his cave days, a rival sadhu from Kerala, jealous of Ramana's growing popularity, gave him a cup of coffee mixed with a potent poison or drug. The reaction, Ramana knew it was poisoned. He drank it anyway. The aftermath, he vomited massive amounts of phlegm and his body went numb, but he survived. He never accused the sadhu or sought revenge. The sadhu eventually fled in fear. The truth, Ramana's non-resistance was total. He did not protect his body. 3. The 1924 robbery, Nonviolence in Action. This is a definitive case study on his view of violence. The event: robbers, dacoits, broke into the ashram one night, expecting the guru to have gold. The defense: the devotees grabbed sticks to fight back. Ramana's command: let them take what they want. We are sadhus. We should not have possessions. If they beat you, accept it. Do not hit back. The result: the robbers beat Ramana on the leg. He carried the mark for life. They found nothing of value, only a few rupees. They beat the devotees. The twist: Ramana offered them a meal before they left. They refused. The aftermath: the robbers were later caught by the police for another crime. Ramana refused to testify against them. 4. The will dispute, the power vacuum. The controversy over the ashram will, 1938, is crucial for understanding the institution versus the sage. The document, the will, transferred authority to the family lineage. The plaintiff, a devotee named Perumal Swami, sued the ashram, claiming a sannyasi, renunciate, cannot hold property or sign a will. The courtroom: Ramana was deposed. He gave elusive answers. Lawyer: do you own this ashram? Ramana: the world is mine and nothing is mine. Lawyer: but who owns the building? Ramana: the one who feels he is the body owns the building. The outcome: the court eventually ruled in favor of the ashram management, interpreting Ramana's agent of God status as a legal entity. It was a messy collision of Advaita and British common law. Part 12. The gaze and initiation, Diksha. Ramana rarely touched people, Sparsha Diksha, and rarely gave mantras, Mantra Diksha. His primary method of transmission was Jnana Diksha, initiation by look 1. The mechanics of the gaze. The experience: devotees reported that his eyes would stop blinking. They would shine with an intense brilliance. He would fix his gaze on the devotee's eyes. The effect: the devotee would feel a heat or current entering their eyes, moving to the heart and silencing the mind. The description: it was like a sword entering the heart. Practical application for you: you cannot get his physical gaze now. However, Ramana said, visualizing the form of the guru is as good as the physical presence. Technique: visualize his eyes looking into yours. Do not visualize him as a picture. Visualize the act of being seen. This triggers the same submissive reflex in the ego. 2. The dream initiation. Ramana often appeared in dreams. He stated that the dream of the guru is real. The distinction: if you dream of a mountain, it is a mental projection. If you dream of the guru, it is the self making contact. Action: if you have such a dream, treat the instructions given in it as binding and real commands. Part 13. The walking meditation, Giri Pradakshina. Ramana was generally sedentary, but he made one massive exception: Giri Pradakshina, walking around Arunachala Hill. 1. The only rule he enforced. He was lenient about diet and meditation hours, but he was evangelical about the hill walk. The distance: 14 kilometers, approx 7 miles. The method: barefoot. Walking slowly, like a queen in her 9th month of pregnancy. Silence or chanting. The promise, he said: one who goes around the hill on foot creates a center of force that will destroy the ego without effort. He called it the Siddha medicine. It works, whether you believe in it or not. 2. The geography of power. He identified specific zones on the path: Yamalingam, the point where the hill looks like a pyramid. Good for death meditation: Unnamalai tank, a water body where he often rested. Adi Annamalai, the village on the backside of the hill. He claimed the energy was different there, more ancient and primal. 3. Practical adaptation. If you cannot go to India, Ramana allowed mental pradakshina. Technique: visualize the hill. Visualize yourself walking around it slowly. He claimed the mental act, if done with focus, yields the same result, because the hill is not just rocks, it is a frequency of the self. Part 14. Relationships with women. The matriarchal aspect. Unlike many traditional Indian ashrams, which were strictly patriarchal or forbade women from proximity, Ramana's ashram was surprisingly matriarchal in its inner circle. 1. Mudaliar Pati, the grandmother. Role: she was an elderly widow who treated Ramana like a grandson. Privilege: she was the only one allowed to bully him. She would force him to eat extra food. She would scold him if he looked thin. Ramana's response: he obeyed her meekly. He called her granny. It showed his total lack of holy man pretension. 2. Ekamal, the feeder. Tragedy: she lost her husband and all her children in rapid succession. She was suicidal. Service: for 38 years she cooked food at her house and carried it up the hill or ashram to feed him every single day. The lesson: she practiced bhakti, devotion, through service. Ramana stated that her grief was transmuted into liberation through the act of feeding. 3. The cow Lakshmi. Ramana treated Lakshmi not as a pet, but as a distinguished lady. Communication: he spoke to her in Tamil, and she understood. He mediated her quarrels with other cows. The death: 1948. When she was dying, he rushed to her shed. He cradled her head, put one hand on her heart and one on her head, and gazed into her eyes until she expired. The declaration, he announced: Lakshmi has been liberated, Mukti. He ordered a Samadhi shrine built for her, with the same rites used for a sannyasi. This contradicted all orthodox scripture, which says animals must be reborn as humans to get enlightened. Ramana broke the rules. Enlightenment is available to any consciousness. Part 15. Specific techniques for modern problems: anxiety, insomnia, lust. These are derived from his specific advice to different devotees, synthesized for modern utility. 1. Handling sexual urges, devotees often confess to being tormented by lust. Ramana's advice: do not fight the urge directly. Fighting it gives it reality. The reframing: the sexual urge is just energy. It is the desire for union. You are seeking union with the body because you have forgotten your union with the self. The tactic: when the urge arises, ask who has this desire. Trace the I that wants sex. The energy will not disappear, but it will be sublimated back into the general current of the body. 2. Handling insomnia and dullness, nidra. The problem: devotees would fall asleep during meditation. Ramana's advice: sleep is better than aimless thinking. The logic: in sleep, the ego is temporarily merged in ignorance. In wandering thought, the ego is active and dangerous. If you fall asleep while inquiring, do not feel guilty. It is a rest for the ego. When you wake up, resume immediately. The waking sleep, Jagrat Sushupti. The goal is to maintain the feeling of being that you have in deep sleep, but while you are awake. 3. Handling grief. When a devotee, Ekamal, was weeping over her dead family, Ramana's reality check: the dream has ended. Why cry over the characters in the dream? The hard truth: he did not offer. They are in heaven. He offered. They never existed in the way you thought. He stripped away the emotional cushion to force them to face the transience of the ego. Part 16. The physical environment, architecture of the hall. To visualize his life, one must understand the old hall. This was his universe for 20+ years. The sofa, a velvet-covered divan. He sat in the corner. The windows: devotees, especially monkeys and squirrels, would enter through the windows. The atmosphere: it was pin-drop silent. No talking was allowed. The routine: 4:00 a.m. Wake up. Veda Parayanam, chanting, begins. 7:00 a.m. Breakfast, idli or coffee. 11:00 a.m. Lunch. 5:00 p.m. Evening Veda Parayanam. 7:30 p.m. Dinner. 9:00 p.m. Retire. The burning newcomers often found the atmosphere in the hall physically uncomfortable, an intense heat or pressure in the head. This was known as the cooking of the mind. Part 17. Advanced Metaphysics. Ajata Vada, the theory of non-creation. This is the most radical part of his teaching, often withheld from beginners. 1. Shrishti Drishti versus Drishti Shrishti. Level 1. Shrishti Drishti. The world is created, and then you see it. Standard realism. Level 2. Drishti Shrishti. The world is created because you see it. Like a dream, the act of perception creates the object. Subjective idealism. Level 3. Ajatavada. The Ramana standard. Nothing was ever created. The truth, the world, the ego, and the suffering never actually happened. It is an optical illusion in the absolute. The screen analogy, the movie plays on the screen. The fire in the movie does not burn the screen. The water does not wet it. When the movie ends, nothing has happened to the screen. You are the screen. 2. The Ribu Gita. This was Ramana's favorite book. He recommended reciting it even if you didn't understand it. The practice, reading the Ribu Gita, is a practice in tuning. It relentlessly repeats, "You are Brahman. You are not the body," thousands of times. The effect, Ramana said, the repetition acts like a hammer, breaking the concrete of the mind. Part 18. A Day in the Life. The Micro Details. To ground this, here is a reconstruction of a typical Tuesday in 1935. 03:30 a.m. Ramana wakes up. No alarm. He sits on his bed. 04:00 a.m. He goes to the kitchen to start cutting vegetables for the day's sambar. He chats with the cooks, cracking jokes, correcting their technique. 05:00 a.m. He showers. Cold water. 06:00 a.m. He enters the hall. Devotees are waiting. He sits on the sofa. He does not greet them. He gazes into space. The silence begins. 08:00 a.m. Mail arrives. He reads letters aloud. If a letter is from a devotee seeking help, he looks at it for a moment, transmitting grace, and nods. 10:00 a.m. He takes a short walk. He interacts with the squirrels, feeding them cashews. He allows them to climb on his body. 11:30 a.m. Lunch. He eats on a leaf plate on the floor with everyone else. He mixes everything into a slurry, avoids tasting separate flavors, and eats quickly. 12:30 p.m. He returns to the hall, the siesta time, but he rarely sleeps. He just reclines. 02:30 p.m. Visitors arrive. Questions are asked. He answers usually in Telugu. Translators convert it to English. 04:45 p.m. He goes out for a bathroom break. His walk is slow due to rheumatism. 05:00 p.m. Veda chanting. He sits motionless, eyes open, absorbed in the sound. 07:30 p.m. Dinner. 09:00 p.m. The hall closes. He sleeps on the sofa or the veranda. Part 19. The final step checklist for you. If you want to implement Ramana Maharshi's path without the fluff, here is your checklist. 1. The anchor. Establish the I feeling in the chest. Check for it like checking for your wallet. Is it there? 2. The filter. When a problem arises, bill, breakup, illness. Apply the filter. To whom is this happening? 3. The break. If the mind races, hold the breath. Kumbhaka for 30 seconds to reset. 4. The diet. Eat sattvic, vegetarian, fresh, mild. Don't overeat. A heavy stomach makes inquiry impossible, causes sleep. 5. The walk. If you are stuck, walk. Physical movement. Circumambulation engages the body so the mind can unwind. 6. The sleep. Before falling asleep, hold the I thought. Try to carry it into the darkness of sleep. Actionable next step. Do the corpse exercise tonight. Lie in bed. Don't move. Visualize your body is dead. It is stiff. It is going to be burned. Ask, now that this body is dead, what is left? Don't answer with words. Wait for the answer to reveal itself as a sensation of being. Stay there. Sleep.